Good morning, everyone. We will start right now this one of activities from the UMPA and the CIESS as a commitment that we have for all people, specifically for older persons. We will start this session that has the subject as one of the components that more specific formats that CIESS provides for the people that are CIESS virtual classrooms. Within that, we have the principal need to inform the population and also to empower them and to provide them what are their rights in the international laws. What is the role that the principal institutions do have to provide them? In this inauguration for this session, we will welcome you to provide you capacitation and training for CIESS personnel, and also to invite all member institutions for the same conference and all general public that are able to be part of this training and of this part of this training. Welcome, everyone. I will apply this inauguration from on behalf of Emilio Carrasco, Executive Director from the Inter-American Center for Social Security Studies, and also for the representative for UMPA. I will pass the floor to Dr. Emilio Carrasco, who will give you some words. Thank you very much, everyone, for being here today by website, and also for all the invitation from the UMPA invitation. And Sandra Wenchen from CEPAL. This initiative started with a very easy and possible perception from UMPA and the CIESS, and also for the Inter-American Convention for the human rights for older persons. And we will express you the need to understand. So I will propose to provide a class. So this is a format as a CIESS virtual classroom. So we have here a specific item. We have the right not to know and not to know everything about. This is the main purpose of this activity, of the main purpose of the schools, where we have the liberty to ask without, not to be afraid to ask for every question. For the CIESS, it's very important to start making relationships with different agencies, some bodies that works specifically in certain topics that are for Social Security. In this case, the CIESS is a good bridge to provide Social Security institutions that in our states and in our countries, they have the responsibility to provide benefits and services for older persons. Every member institutions have covered and they have experiences and have knowledge, but also it is very useful to have a new training. Nowadays, students from this school are the students from the CIESS. When I say that the students from CIESS are part of this convention, we will be part of this classroom. In Mexico, I don't know if in Mexico there exists the term to be part of the classroom. This is not a scenario. This is not a scenario or to provide an activity, but this is just a classroom, a virtual classroom. So we have two teachers. We will be connected. We will ask some questions to our CIESS students to be part of the convention. So I will try to provide them an exam just to conclude with the class, but don't ask me about that. So this is what we are aimed to do. Everyone who works in a Social Security institutions have to know all the instances from Social Security. And everyone have the main activity, but this is a pedagogic activity. It's an academic activity. As Diego mentioned before, we will start the possibilities also to by making this type of virtual classroom to a broadening auditorium, and also for institutions through internet and also all these technologies that we use, and also for everyone who are joining us virtually to be part of this session. Noe, thank you very much for your contribution. Without your contribution, we will not have been able to provide this class. Sandra, thank you very much. We will be attentive to listen to your class. And right now we have another student that is just arriving. If we have more students, we will be up. Go ahead, we will start our class. The agenda start with Noe. Noe, we will talk about certain topics that Dr. Carrasco already mentioned before. It is just a training for the center, just to know what are the concepts for CIESS virtual classroom, how to evolve, and what are the perspective, what is importance to manage these topics, not only within the institution personnel, but also human rights institutions that for human rights provision, and also to the initiative that we have here for this topic. So I will pass the floor for Noé Valdivia that will talk about this topic today. Thank you very much, Dr. Carrasco. Thank you very much for joining me today. Let me just thank you for this relationship that we have between institutions, and also we will thank you to be part of this convention. And this is a significant social security event in international and national framework, and so we will celebrate the 60th anniversary for the convention. And also, Diego, thank you very much for the relationship from the demographic convention. And we will start talking about these breaches. And also, we will thank you Sandra Wenshon from the CEPAL, that is colleague for United Nations in some topics for elder people and older people. And thank you very much for this opportunity to give this class today and to know in more detail the Inter-American Convention for human rights for the older persons. And also, I want to thank you the presence for all people who are joining us today, and CIESS colleagues, and also colleagues from UMPA who are continue this classroom via internet. And also, we will thank you all persons who are joining us virtually. I will start also to thank you, Doctor, on behalf of Darla Arbitrage, our representative from UMPA, for this relationship that we already created and we have to continue having for the future. So right now we will here to learn together. As the doctor mentioned, we are here to ask, to have this expertise with Dr. Sandra Wichan that we will follow us to understand more information about the Inter-American Convention. So we will start for certain topics that are very important that we have give us a more broad framework, and also for the vinculation between population, other people population, and the Dr. Wichan we will provide us a more detail these things. We will start also, as we know that the region have a rapid demographic change from some rates, frequency rates, frequency rates, and accelerated population rates. Government societies have to be ready to face regional challenges that we will have in the future, and also for inequalities that we already know, for example, the economic or gender challenges. It's also very important that we have to highlight that more just for these challenges and for this context, the main topic for this are have to be celebrated. The low fecundity and the old people are a success. And also for the older people rates and numbers. It is very important that we have to have a strategy for residents, demographic residents, that to imply a political policies that have to be part of these international acknowledgements, and also for the exchange for good practices in the region and human rights for women, intersectionality, intergenerational, good or healthy aging and care services, and also to provide some specific resources for this. Protecting the aging to be part for the society that have older persons have common points, but they're not similar. The first thing that we have to develop protection systems in care and social security for to provide universal access is sustainable for older persons. The second part include the previous point, and also to invest and develop promotion and social protection services for women and also for younger generations that can enhance social protections for the older persons. So in this case, we can cover these services for older persons and also due to the inequalities in our region. In sentences, so we have to confirm that the demographic residence before the Asian, it refers to enhanced contracts for older persons, reproductive and sexual services for women, provide them to exercise their rights, their corporal autonomy, and also for all the work that we have to do in the labor market. It has to be a commitment for us to enhance or to face the enhancement for pension systems and non-contributing systems, and also transferring rate processes, intersectionality, and women intersection for social and political environment in Latin America and the Caribbean. At the same time, we have to be able to provide care systems and to be putting it in accessible, and also for learning permanent accesses to technologies, so older persons can enhance life expectancies and strengthen inclusion, social inclusion. For this reason, we have to make sure that this aging have to be part of intergenerational process just to have a favorable impact in the future. In this important space that we will know in more detail, the Inter-American Convention for Protecting the Human Rights of Older Person. It was already ratified by Mexico from the UNFA, so we confirm our commitment to cut the breaches and to being available to orientate our actions to have policies, more specific policies in a lower resources scenario. It is very important to have awareness into the older person's diversity and to understand and to provide actions that to enhance life conditions from older persons, to guarantee monitoring from other processes from the country. And also we are committed to work together from these actions and to make emphasis from the lawful and political environment for agent policies in cooperation for the governments, some human rights agencies, including the participation for older persons in decision making. We are sure that this set of actions, including the information that we will receive today, we will contribute the sustainable development for societies and also for other societies, and in comprehensive societies that can contribute to our actions to transform for older persons' life in our region. This is only a preamble that we will talk about right today on behalf of Sandra Wanchan. Thank you very much. As we all know, listen, the doctor we have here is an international reference in the topic. She's a very expert lecturer from the convention. So that this is an instrument that it's interesting to know because it's lawful, linkable from these states that are committed to comply with this convention and to make mechanisms to comply of the human rights that we have here in the convention. So we will present, will lecturer Dr. Sandra Winchuan. She holds a PhD in Latin American Studies, honors in anthropology from the Universidad de Artes y Ciencias Sociales de Chile, and she holds a postdoctorate in anthropology from the Universidad de Chile. Since 2022, she has worked as a specialist on aging subject at Latin American and Caribbean Demographic Center of the United Nations Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean. And also, among other activities, she is responsible for the technical coordination of the regional follow-up of the Madrid International Plan of Action on Aging through the Regional Intergovernmental Conference on Aging and the Rights of Older Persons in Latin America and the Caribbean. We will remember you from the ones who are joining us virtually. We will have in a simultaneous interpretation in English. And also, we will be able to be part of students for the virtual CIESS classroom. I would like to add Dr. Sandra or Teacher Sandra. Her principal role today is to provide us training. So she is our teacher. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, CIESS, and also the UNFA for the invitation to be part of this activity. Please let me know if you can hear me well. Can you hear me? Can you hear me well? I'm seeing the classroom. Students, can you tell me if you can hear me well? As I mentioned before, I'm very grateful to be working today in this class. I couldn't be able to be present on site, so we have many missions. So I already coming back from Mexico some weeks ago. So in this case, I won't be able to. I will be able to work with you virtually, and also to have a better interaction, and also with people who are not on site in this activity. I will also thank the invitation for Dr. Carrasco and Noé Maldiviso on behalf of Arts Arbitrage. I would like to work with you in a way that we can interact as much as possible. And I think that this first approach for the Inter-American Convention and all human rights, and nowadays what we required is it's more than the reading for the convention and the operation, just to analyze some of the rights that are established in the convention and what are the main elements from the ones that all the countries would prioritize their function. So this is the principal item. So how can we work today on this? So we will ask you, Juan Diego and Noé, so we will be, we can see the opportunity to make some cultural classes just to be able to analyze what are the rights, what are the obligations from the state, and what are our role as intergovernmental body in the case of UNFA as secretariat, or as hegemonies as CEPAL. So just to present myself, as you can know me more, the main point of the Inter-American Convention on Protecting Human Rights of Older Persons was born in CEPAL in 2003. It took more or less 20 years that this idea was generated, the convention to enhance an international convention. In that year, in the CEPAL, we have an experts meeting from social protection. In some of the conventions, we have the need for this treatment for older persons that can be part of older population sectors. So this is not only a recommendation for an expert meeting. Were it converted into a governmental convention in the Declaration of Brasilia that come from the governmental conference in Brazil from CEPAL. In Brasilia Declaration, it was mentioned that it was an international convention on protecting human rights of other persons, and also to provide a relator, a special relator from the human rights for other persons in human rights framework. This main idea that was born in this Brazilian declaration is an important point worldwide. In this, many countries have a principal role as the General Assembly to make sure that in 2010 they have the first independent expert from human rights and of other persons in human rights framework. This is a work that Brazil has a leadership from Brazil, and the first relator was Chinita Comsal. After 2 years of mandate, the independent experts was reforming in the council. And nowadays we have Claudia McMiller, who is European, and she is working as independent experts on protecting human rights of other persons. This is a work environment, all topics that have to do with human rights for other persons. So what happened when this for this international convention? In CEPAL, with the initiative with some organization from the region, so we have to debate this topic. First of all, just to train, to provide training, because it was not easy to talk about the enhancement for international convention when we don't have a clear topic for what is the convention. The second part for CEPAL, just to establish what was necessary to establish a convention and how will we contribute for other persons' human rights. And also for the Argentina government initiative, we have to work broadly, and we have a approach for the convention on the rights of other persons. This first issue was the need for the making for this convention. As Dr. Carrasco mentioned before, it was distributed in the PCN with you. What means here is that we already know the origin for the convention. What were the main difficulties to get into this Inter-American Convention? Why this Inter-American Convention was first making for United Nations to make an international convention? Why do we need an international convention while we have the Inter-American Convention? So these are some questions that I hope that you can ask me. And we have to make sure that we're different between international convention, because we have many treaties. It is the base of the practice that are documented that are being part of some states. The convention is not a writing from the OEA. The convention is an instrument that resulted from some negotiations from work team in charge on making this project. From the legislation from the CIESS and to be signed from other countries, and to work also for ratification and qualification. I don't remember exactly that I wrote some things in some work some years ago. It is almost 30 meetings in different states, and mostly in Washington to being convinced of this part of the convention. Every verb, every comma, every graphic, it was part of negotiation, a complex negotiations. Negotiations that were not able to be optimal. But nowadays, they allow us to have an instrument that is useful for a older person's rights protection. In this framework, I will not like to forget fundamental elements that I will provide you to know what are the items that are related to the convention. Let me know if you can see my screen. Can you see my screen? Yes, we can see it. Thank you very much, doctor. I will first talk about that. I mentioned before that it is not only a sessions. I have been working with different workers in different countries. We have 3 complete days of working, so we have to continue working. And first of all, what I want to talk with you is the topic of demographic topics. There are certain indicators that can allow us to know the perception of older persons. In why? Because aging topic or older person's topic, as you may know that you most of you work directly of these topics, you may know that not always they are completely installed in the public agenda or they have a specific place in the government agenda. It is we don't have enough resources to work with older persons. In some of cases, it is considered that older persons have less need for social insertion from versus other sections. So there are many obstacles that we have to tackle to work before older persons' rights. And also, there is a tool that it is useful to work with governments and also to work all the topics to be aware for all the rights for all the persons and eradicating our demographic and social economic sectors. First of all, I would like to show you the world for you to see how the rate for population having changed worldwide. This was in the 1900. We have determined number of population that was located in certain parts of the continent, or sorry, for the world, and it has been changed as you see here in different countries. Population in 2000 is different versus the one in 1900. So we were talking about the general population framework, not in hectarean population. And now let's just see what happened in 2020. Population in the world is changing. Population in the world is having or is living a demographic transition that is very different between countries, for between regions in the world, and also within certain countries that they have a different behavior. And also in America, in Latin America and the Caribbean, we have a sex and age distribution in million people. And we can see how they were distributed in 1950s. To get into 60 years old in 1950, we have to was born in 1989. So what we observe here, in 1950, the life expectancy was less, as we can see right now. There was an important concentration for infant population. As you can see, the bottom of the pyramid, children who was born 1949, it was the majority of the population in terms of some figures. And this has been changing while decades are running. In the year 2000, the situation is very different. Population has been changed in Latin America and the Caribbean. And we have a particular concentration between 5 and 15 years old, and the population over 60 years has been increasing in an important way within a total population. Most of you know these pyramids. Let's see what happened in 2022. Now we can see the bottom of the pyramid from the ones who was born in 2021. It is not the same thing as we have in 2050. The population was concentrated into ones that was born in 2020, 2001 and 1986. So we are talking about some population that they don't. We have a concentration between reproductive ages, and where children are less due to less fecundity. And 60-year-old or over people are increasing. So this is what Roy refers before. As he mentioned before, the continent or the region is getting older because the region is getting older in a rapidly way in comparison for the rest of other regions from the world. What means here is that population is it's increasing in accelerated range in comparison with developed countries. Now we have to read in a horizontal and vertical way for this pyramid. So we can see here that the concentration of the population are in approximately 20 and 30 years old. And also, just to show this as vertical means, we can see here what is happening right now as a aging for the population and the hectares structure are getting older. It means that people are getting older not only for the increasing for older people, but also because these generations who was born, for example, in 1980 or in 1970, they are getting older by the increase the ages. According to United Nations projections in 2050, what will happen? We don't have this concentration for infant concentration, but also it is concentrated principally within 30 and 60 years old. But you can see here how the 60-year-old population has been increasing, how it has increased, and how elder persons, as you can see, in vertical way in comparison with birds. In some other countries, will be similar or superior for from people or who populations less or 5 years old. This is all the subregion from the sepal. This is the same graphic from other perspective. In 1950, we already mentioned that the bottom from the pyramids has increased in 2022 has been changed. In 2050, also we have other change. And we can see here that this age structure for the population has been aging. As we mentioned before, it is not the same in all countries. Nowadays, we have different situations. This demographic, we have starting the changing with less births and deaths in different subregional countries. As you can see here in the case of Cuba, deaths have been increasing, and it has to do with also with demographic recession because we have societies with more older persons that we have increasing in deaths. And also we have the case in Costa Rica. It is almost the same, but in a different rhythm in comparison with Cuba. In the case Mexico and Haiti, that has been up to 2050, and 2050 will be very different in comparison for the subregion and the region. These old graphics where I can show you how the enhancement for older persons population has been increasing also for the subregion. We hope that around 2043, a population over 60 years old increase or be up to more than for the population for less than 4 years old. A population under 5 years and 25 years and over will be more than 84% 2044. Less than 75 and less than 50 years old that we can see here in the right graphic. A population under 5 years and 75 years and over. And what happened here for societies and public policies and also for older persons' rights. And we have to be aware of that is something that is being part of other regions in the world. As you may know, the life expectancy, how is it been increasing due to the COVID-19? We have a lower life expectancy, we have a greater recovery, and we will provoke a influence in the life expectancy. I don't know if you can see here in 2020 where we have a less life expectancy and rapidly goes normal. So this is what we have to expect in 2001, 2100. So just to increase the number of people of more than 75 years, they have to live more. And we have important challenges for societies. And we have societies that also for infrastructure and public services that they are not adapted into the needs for older persons' needs or older persons who have more than 60 years. And also, this is very important to know how aging is expressed within median age in the labor market. We can see here that in different countries, how medium age of the population and median age of the labor force has been increasing in the region. In case of Mexico, for example, 2019, a median age of the labor force for men was 37.4. In case of women, 37.9 years. It was in comparison from the previous years. As you may see, we have a less increased number between 1 or 2 years. So this is very important to be aware of. In the case of Cuba, for example, the median age of labor force for men was 44.6 years, and for women, 42.4 years. It's a huge change. As you may ask, yes, this is it's important to open the labor markets for all, and also important to prepare teenagers to be part of the labor market. But also the labor force is been aging, and it is not the same as we have in 1950 or the decade for 1980s. And because the societies are getting older, and also at the same time the labor force. Other element that we mentioned at the beginning was the people in poverty conditions. We have different numbers in 2010, 2020, and we also have all different indicators related to all people who received insufficient pensions. And so we have two different salaries in different countries. In these years, older persons are not as older as we compare with children. There were different numbers published in different region countries where poverty within children and 50 years old children are wide. In this, we have also an explanation for this related to what Noe mentioned before. More poor families have more fecundity. So we have more children who live in poverty conditions than older persons who live individually. So these older persons receive contributive pensions or non-contributive pensions, what need or they help to face poverty due to the income. When we analyze this topic from poverty and multidimensional poverty framework, this framework starts to change because we have here that some older persons have some specific restrictions in certain sections in a multinational level. These are some indicators related to health, as we mentioned before in the beginning. So we have countries, we have more older peoples. It has to do with deaths and prevalence. We also have also related data with opinion that have older persons in regards to care access. For example, in case of Paraguay, um, 47% or 50% of older persons who had service considered that care access is not equal. And around 46%, it is not unfair. And also is almost the 49%, 50%. So you can make us that we have a scenario of demographic changing that is evident. This change is measured, and every day we have new indicators to measure this information. With no everything we have, but it is still exists. The impact of this demographic impact in different scopes for social life. It is not only for indicators related to poverty, but also what has to do with care and how the care impacts and how older or aging impacts social security services. We were talking about a more wide process, a higher phenomenon that has influence in all the life in society, in our families, infrastructure, equipment, and in different scopes. And now we will talk about the Inter-American Convention and human rights instruments. When you can see here this phenomenon, you may have tools for work. Tools for work, some instrumentation that allows that these policies that are being working in a government level are not only in a short period of time. They try to identify what the government has the responsibility to for the older person's rights. In this sense, when we make this first analysis, this first analysis was around 2008. When we make analysis with what happened in the international environment within older persons' environment, and you may know that as you work at Social Security, you can find that the right is regulated or for the ILO or some civil and political rights. But also there are some other recommendation from United Nations, other business results for intergovernmental businesses related to Social Security. In case for older persons, it's the same. So when you talk about a important topic that has to do with the care, we didn't find any definition. First of all, because this was not normalized. When we have to normalize this, we found that a Human Rights Council from Europe has some difference in care topic, and also we can find something in Africa related to care or some other national legislation from the region that work into rights or care topics. This is one of the elements that has to do with one of the main topics for the convention, and to be part of the practice and design for the public policies. I don't know, Diego, if there is some questions from the audience. So right now we will change from the next step. What do you think about this, doctor? At the moment, there are no questions. If you want to continue, go ahead. I may think that if there are no questions, it's because everyone is understanding. We will continue with what we are going to hear right now. So when I say that this a human rights international framework, it does not include any express guarantee on age discrimination in all age. So what this argument for this? All human rights framework include, as for example, the case of equality and non-discrimination or other social conditions. From this social condition, we were all involved. People with disabilities, indigenous peoples, also children, teenagers or adolescents or older persons. We are all together there. The main thing here that the states were imply a certain topics for a civil society. If I don't have a specific definition for discrimination due to age, I cannot work with the public environment to apply the revision for discrimination against older persons, because we didn't have a standard, because we didn't know what was the meaning for this. In many constitutions from the region, it was the incorporation for older persons' rights and the protocol for the Inter-American Convention for on the cultural, economic rights. And San Salvador Protocol includes a article for older persons. It was not implied for states or the governments. It was not the specific instrument or adequate instrument in work for the work for older persons' rights. In the jurisprudence of the treaty bodies, as you may know, that has to do specifically with the Human Rights Council. It has not a current and empirical conceptual framework dedicated to the rights of older persons. This is very fundamental when we talk about the convention. We are not talking about these conceptual academic concepts, but we are talking about a corpus, a right corpus for older persons to protect them and to disseminate the rights for older persons. In some countries, as we as CEPAL, we have to provide health for meds in the ILO. They have to face many challenges. What was implied here that the older person's rights were already protected. The international human right for human rights. So, for example, 2002, after many years of the International Convention, we have a universal journal that mentioned that and includes some recommendation related to older persons' rights. It was not compensated. The High Commissioner some deficiencies in relation to the human rights of older persons. And this Higher Commissioner implies this. If one relies solely on the possibilities of existing mechanisms to compensate for the current deficiencies in relation to the human rights of older persons, it is likely that at best gradual changes will take place, but not the paradigm a shift necessary to fully, continuously, and exhaustively address the human rights of older persons. So this is very fundamental. Why? If you relate demographic framework and you relate this to elder persons' rights and also with public policies, you may think that they may have certain similarity in what the society show and what the demographic tendencies show and projections for the population show, and how the public policies are being part of this reality. As we all know that not only the political policies act as an anticipated way for these different phenomenons, but they have to work as compensation, as we may mention here. What we need here, as the High Commissioner mentioned 2022, or the CEPAL mentioned in 2007 or 2008, that we needed a more coherence because we were talking about elder persons' rights. As you may know, that we were talking about care, but what are the difference between care right in women or children and also other persons? Is there a certain specific item that we considered, or we are talking about that we have a right that can only be applied for non-discrimination framework, and so we can incorporate the differences? Revendication for the elder person's rights in place first for the demand for recognition as a independent person, autonomous person, the visibility as a group for people in general. And they can be defined a chronological definition. And it's not something that the older persons can be integrated in. Also, valuation, valuable in respect to diversity. For the Inter-American Convention, it was very important for certain countries. That is why that this convention has to be applied for the multiple discrimination that many other persons suffer when there are different categories that are the consequence for the discrimination, and also that they are apparently are seen not conventional. So if we don't know the rights, or if we are not broadened the right, we will have some behaviors that are not beneficial for naturalized or natural rights, as the society may imply. And we can see here constantly when we talk about older persons topics, there are certain behaviors that we all together have that are normal or normalize different things that I imply for older persons. We don't establish a difference in respect to a good practice. So the same thing happened with children, women, people with disabilities, etc. And there is a framework that has evolution for international rights, for human rights, and for a specification for a certain or specific groups' rights that older persons gone into this convention, Inter-American Convention for Protecting on Human Rights. What are the contributions for these specific treaties, specific human rights treaties? First of all, awareness about intersectionality. Older person is not only age. It is not a chronological age. They have history. They have a vital. They are communities. It's very different. Older women versus older men. Here in Mexico, it's very different from older person from Guerrero State versus elder person who live in Oaxaca or in the Mexico City or within the same city. There are many differences. It's very different. Older African women is very different from elderly indigenous women who live in Chiapas. So we can see here that we are talking about the intersectionality. We are all human humans that have to be part of this treatise that have been considered. Women are not only a gender. There are women who have different identities, and also it happens with older persons, and also have a catalytic effect in law and policies. We have seen this in some other disability people in certain countries, as Costa Rica, for example. And we also have seen this in children or in certain women's sectors that from this specific treatise, some laws are created versus violence, and we have many policies for women equality. And also we may do some things for older persons. It also promotes a change in the policy frameworks and indicators that measure their progress. We find here to crystallize the new paradigms. So to work from existing older person's way of working, so we have a new perspective based on human rights in certain policies for older persons. And also we have a symbolical function. A human rights convention for children, for example, is something that it is within the United Nations framework. It is still, we have to still working on it. In a certain time, it have to be being created into practice. So, for example, children, the convention they don't children don't mention that they have to the right for a good life. They don't mention that they don't have to be mistreated. The Convention for Children Human Rights are different from the culture for that mistreatment are for the children. Also happen the same happens in women rights. So they promote the visibility to this population, protected population. So everywhere have to work on this. It not only have to do with this medication for this convention, we also have to work for this convention to be part of an instrument, an important instrument for practicing and daily activities. This Inter-American Convention for on Protecting Human Rights, as you already read, challenges and seeks to overcome visions about the elderly or certain addressing older persons' issues for charity. And also this basis for addressing older persons' issues as a human right issue. And here we can talk about that can be contradictory, but we have a traditional paradigm for human rights. And also for the contrary, for the paradigm, and we all know that the practice this is an intersection. In many ways, that even though the promotion of the rights for other persons are promoted, we have to be the beneficiaries of social assistance are not conceived. So this not allows that the convention are looking to change the regional paradigm for older persons. And also the institutions have to be clear of this. The governments, they have who have this clarifying these older persons, and they have the change of paradigm. And you may see things in every practice. They try to be visible in 2030 agenda or some population agenda in every social life environment they may have been visual. This is an international standard, a human rights treaty. The war showed this convention when the convention was approved into this OEA environment. We have the African Convention for Human Rights that also specifically talks about specifically for older persons' rights. And they provide some recommendations for the European sector in human rights that they work on this topic. In this case, they are not they have not a link into the inter American conventions. So they have obligations of in part for the states that to be ratificate this convention. With the ratification in Mexico and also in the OE, the Mexican state have certain obligations in regards to the rights that are consecrated into the convention. This means many things, but mainly that the state have to observe the treaty. For example, nowadays Mexico should not have or should not adopt a new legislation in contrary to the convention. They need many things. We have to be attentive. So while we're just we have the convention for this. When many parts of this region have to be part of the care population. Some states that have ratified the convention as observance for the right for care and they called the 11th Inter-American Convention. This is not less important. And the first time it was established an international convention for care right. There is no other instrument, international instrument, lawfully linkable for the right for the care. However, we should know that we have to train deputies, uh, officers, civil social environments, also to put the observance of the treaty, and also to comply with the obligation to respect, protect, and comply with human rights. We also have here the repair where human rights degradation has been seen, not only as economic environment, but also for moral protection for all people who are being seen their rights. The proposal for the convention is to disseminate, protect, and secure the acknowledgement and the exercise for these conditions, equal conditions for all human rights, fundamental freedom for all the persons, and also contribute the inclusion, integration, and participation in the society. This is the main objective for the convention. And why I highlight promote, protect, and secure. As we saw before, these three obligations that are established in this as the objective of the convention. So what we talk about when the convention was created, so we are talking about that all human rights and fundamental freedoms for the person. Why don't we work with the current instruments? Because this is what, so we have to have the linkage. So we are talking about the specificity for the rights. How many of you have the opportunity to read the convention? Can you raise your hand, please? Who wrote the convention? Did you read the convention? The lower number from the ones who wrote the convention. When you're reading the convention or being part of the convention, do you think that it was part of Universal Human Rights Universal Convention? Or is it was for the impact for civil protection, or it is also refers also for the International Commission for Disability Persons? Yes. Well, we look here when the commission was made, there was a main objective. The states didn't want to create new rights. This is not a new topic. And this is part of what has happened. What's happened for the negotiation within the human rights treaties? Not to create rights, new rights. And why? How many years do we have to the International Convention for Human Rights? And at the moment, we don't comply with all the rights that are established there. And we have to work hard for every right that you read in the convention. There were a technical support or experts that had to be training to the states. Care right has been ABC topics, but also if we only work until certain topics, how can we apply for the next step? So this is considering the convention for persons with disabilities. However, we cannot go back. So let's see what the convention for disabilities see. So then you have to specify for older persons or the aging. This is not a basis exercise. So you may know that there are certain things that I'm not agree in the convention. And also, this is what we have here. And also, this is what is happening right now at the moment. This is what the states agree as a norm or standard to guide the action for the countries. This is a graphic that was provided for analysis. What we have see here for the past convention, the convention implies, first of all, emergency rights. There are many interpretations on just to a wide content and also for extended rights. I will explain for you. The right for life is established in all international treaties. But this right is specify when we refer to older persons. This is a specification is important to consider. As you mentioned, you can see here is established in Article 6. And Article 6 reads as follows. States parties shall adopt all measures necessary to ensure older persons effective enjoyment of the right of life that is established in all treaties, and the right to live with dignity in old age until the end of their life and on equal basis with other segments of the population. Someone in the audience can tell me what is the difference between this writing for the life right that are established in other international treaties? I would like to hear you. Noé, can you help me with this? We will open the microphone so someone can interact. The question is, what is the difference between the duration for the life right that come from a human rights framework for what the convention provide for the human right, life human right? There won't be evaluation for this. I think that is a life of quality of life that can provide for a human that just to provide years for the life, just to provide more life expectancy for the person, to provide a good care or a good quality of life for or the years for those people. Just increase or to enhance quality of life. What is your name? What was the name of the person who participated? What the convention is promoting for right of life is a real right in equal conditions in case for elder persons. In generally, as some of them expression before, there is a cultural appreciation because there are some restrictions. There are some perception for older persons, and it is almost a limited life. It says that maybe this article have a contrary element that is the right for life in contrary with other persons. So we have to consider are a certain population sector. They need some other establishments. So I can remember that something that happened during the COVID pandemic was in the case of Colombia that was known as Ruinas de las Canas. The main point here was to not to allow all the people to go out from their homes to walk in the street. And for the protection was a restriction that was not able to provide a equal treatment and a life engagement enjoyment for the older person. Is there someone else who want to answer, or can we continue? I will also add in this case, there is a conversion to living with dignity during the aging process. It has a disciplinary focus that implies discrimination and stigmatism and also autonomy. And how during the life of process, how the innovation for different social conditions and cultural conditions for the aging that can help us to have a different perspective for this risk that are part of this of a topic for the older person's rights and also for the liberty for certain person or even though in the last days to have a dignified life. There has been many discussions about this topic with these regulations or laws that putting together the human rights for older persons to have a dignified quality of life during this life stage. I also want to add in this topic that some of the main elements that have been highlighted in why there is a framework that guarantee older persons' rights and why this document may exist that are focused in certain sectors of the population. As Gisandra May mentioned during this class, there are certain barriers that continue from this framework. So in this sense, the economic framework that can give us to the life just to be a productive person when the person is active in the labor market and when the person decides to retire from these economic activities, it appears that the person socially is not visible from all the social environment. But what provides here for this commission, what this commission provides, it is only for the biological aspect, but also for the dignity conditions for the other persons, and where person can be respect, where the decisions and uh, the decision are valuable and not to be annihilated from a topic that is not only due to the age. These are the participation, Sandra. Thank you very much. This is the first time that I asked for participation. But we can see here that all people who are participating in this meeting. It's very interesting what you mentioned. We had 4 interventions. All of you putting emphasis into the right. So there are all there. This is other duty that we have to put into to the agenda. And this right and this protection is one of the main rights that were some other were debated into versus other rights, but this right have something in particular. And it has to do of what you all mentioned before, quality of life for forever. Emphasis in the autonomy. Juan Diego mentioned that something about the barriers, and the other colleague that I think that was Dr. Carrasco who mentioned. He talked. He mentioned about the topic of this discrimination, of the discrimination that we faced during the pandemic. And now we will provide you some other example. Thank you very much, Dr. Carrasco, to remember this. During the pandemic, you saw some situations that was in same mainly in some developing countries that they have preferences into urgency attention for people who got this ill. Did you saw? Did you listen? Or even though we saw in some cases in the European area that some papers were not translated into hospital because they were not a possibility to be translated. Some of these things that you providing is very related to what we saw during we lived during the pandemic. So I will try to explain for you. We will try to explain for you how we try to imply this article. They will adopt all the necessary measures. Yes, all the measures that have to do with logical to ensure all the persons effective enjoyment of the right of life. In first instance, we have to see whether the right for the life and also the right to live with dignity in old age until the end of their life. So this is very important. There are 2 elements here. Live with dignity in old age until the end of their life. This is very related to palliative care. And also, this is related to informed consent, with the informed freedom consent. And why? If this elder person have the same probability to survive instead of as the same as a teenager, what was done just to negate this attention? What was being protecting, what was protecting during this convention, and not only biological and social items, that the convention has at least a value when we are in older age. It may seem that we can see here in the journals or the press in different environments or within their families that they are more valuable lives than others. So in this case, as we try to protect older persons until the end of their life. So the life as available at other people. So they have to challenge barriers that can avoid them to have the process for their life. As Juan Carlos mentioned, care, pensions. No, so I can see here an emergent right. This imply different specification. So this is necessary to be part of other sectors, but in particular for the older persons. Current rights, as we already mentioned in the Article 5, for the first time is implied. The discrimination for older persons during aging, it is not consent. So this is a new interpretation. So the content is implied for the right for work. When we have the right for work, the reduction, where at the bottom they have the sense for the right, but also they have other elements that are very important for older persons. In other words, for these accessible rights or personal life that are in the convention for people with disabilities, but this specifically applies for older persons. This is only a way to see in different visions the rights for older persons. The implementation of measures of the convention is specifically in Article 4, and also this convention implies some elements in every article. Every article says that there are some other measures that can apply in certain sense. And also, Article 4 imply general measures. For example, adopt measures to prevent, punish, and eradicate those practices contrary to this convention. As we mentioned before, we work for the Caregiver Convention, and we have to be aware at the time when it is designed. And also, we adopt affirmative measures and make the reasonable adjustments that are necessary for the exercise of the rights established in this convention. And also, it implies for what is established in the convention, this elimination of the obstacles to be equal. Third, they will adopt and strengthen all legislative, administrative, judicial, budgetary, and any other measures. It is very important when we are talking about progressivity. 4, promote public institutions specialized in the protection and promotion of the rights of the older persons and their integral development. And this has been very critical in the last years in certain countries in the region, even though within the convention, when it had to go back into the political policies into human rights. 5, they shall promote the collection of appropriate information, including statistical and research data, to enable them to formulate and implement policies. And also, 6, they will promote the broadest participation of civil society and other social sectors. And this is just to apply the convention. You may say that, okay, yes, but this is for everyone. These measures are applied for all groups. The difference here that these measures have to applied in transversal way into the rights established in the convention. What are the minimum elements to be considered? Institutionality for implementation. We have to specify what is happening in our region. So the institutionality, it is not the only one that has been provided in the convention. It is part of everyone. So what is doing here just to have awareness through some social networks or the work that are being provided for different spaces or different bodies. Participation for older persons in data and information generation and legislative harmonization. These are the basic concepts to make the convention. So if we think how it will contribute social security institutions, how it will contribute to the implementation of the convention, how it will contribute this CIESS for the implementation for the convention. Is there a certain specific area to contribute for this implementation of the convention? These are some of the questions that we can ask. Where to start? So we have to designate a government a body responsible for matters relating to the implementation of the convention, not only about the topic, maybe for what is happening in the region of this institutional convention, but we have to have something that can imply or the implementation for the convention. Appoint bodies responsible for matters relating to the implementation of the convention in the relevant ministries. So we have to monitoring the convention. This convention will not be part of the CONAPAM or a Senate of different countries. Builds civil society coalitions or join existing ones to promote the convention. So it's very important, and older persons can know this instrument. In some cases, or in some published press releases on the ratification of the convention, these come into they don't have to be hidden, have to be informed. In Costa Rica, work was done in retired person, a teacher retirement. So while we are seeing here that just to that the population be aware of this convention, and also that the teachers or lecturers have to provide the rectification for the convention. Sensitize professionals carry out a baseline study on the human rights situations, and also braille formats. Synthesize professionals responsible for providing services as lawyers, judges, public officials, and also as the rights for children. They have training for integration of the convention, and carry out a baseline study on the human rights situation of older persons in the country, just to make sure we are on and what we are going to. It is important not to go back. If Mexico have a certain established programs for older persons that are universal, these universal programs have to be established. So we have to continue working. So let's just see what is the quality for the retirement pension. So just shorten the age and identify deficiencies in knowledge, capacities, and needs to adapt laws, policies, programs, and budgets for the implementation of the convention. So we have to not to naturalize these practices that are related to discrimination. Just to use a accessible term, and not to discriminate older persons. This has to do with our daily practice with our families, our parents or grandparents in all community, in all social environments. This convention is a duty for everyone, for human rights institutions, for older persons, or discrimination bodies, and also United Nations agencies. So we have to have alliance, so to know what to do, what we are doing to contribute for this convention. In case for a CIESS membership, how does the Social Security will contribute for the implementation for the convention? For example, in the case for Social Security institutions, if they provide information for 60 years person due to ethnical person that the different progress for the convention. So we have to refer this information and have to implement the convention. Not only for the institutions, it is important to be part of the retirement, but there are only topics that can be part of the contribution. We have social security institutions in Argentina that work with associates or alliances or membership, and they provide training, and they look for a change in the paradigm of what they are working on. These are some they provide some things that can be complex, one of the main things for the states are not to ratificate because they require a huge income, and also because they have required to change practices. So we have to be sensible before human rights. For example, in social security institutions, to be attentive for a person's care, how we treat people. So this is what we are working on to provide a minimum work framework to have a change in one of the fundamental things that are implied for older persons. Sometimes the change of life for older persons have to do with the respectful treatment when they have to travel in the street, or where you have to accessible treatment for some documentation. These are some of the things that we have to change within the society. Some of the changes have to reading of the convention. It is just an inventory of the rights of the repetition of already existing treaties, but we have to be committed from the entire government apparatus of its implementation. We also have to mention that we have to study the study of the convention, to have alliances, and also to be part or involve organizations for human rights. A population for defensories and identify priorities for the convention is very important. We know that not all frameworks can work within all countries, but there are some others that we have to work on. And also, just to have a scope, we have here a document from United Nations for 1988, from the General Assembly for United Nations, where there was a declaration established for older persons' rights. Imagine 1988 was established for the committee in Argentina to establish some basic rights for older persons. When we read this declaration, for example, right for assistance, right for nutrition, right for clothing, it has taken decades, so we still have to work for older persons' rights. And so the convention is a ordinary tool that can have a dialogue with the results for some American, different American instruments from international organs or governmental organs, from United Nations, OEA, or what we need here is the commitment to the segmentation, the commitment to follow the implementation of the convention, or in the contrary, we cannot explore the change that we need for our society. And nowadays, all the persons who were born in 1990, 90s, 1940s, I don't know exactly what was the year where this person were born, 1980s. People who was born 2000, they will they getting older in 2060. So how what are we provide to these future generations? So this topic, we don't have to work on the future generations, but also for the change for all the generations. In this framework, the Convention contributes for this framework, in particularly for older persons' rights. So this is the end of the presentation, so we can continue with the Q&A section. Thank you very much, Sandra. I think that is very interesting class for us, that we are as students learning who are working on this valuable instrument. As you mentioned before, not only we have to apply or refrain what other states have to apply for older persons, but I think one of the main objectives for this kind of classes is to be aware or to reflect on how we can provide, what can we do with these minimal actions that can transform. And also in the sense that we already mentioned that what the CS is going to do, what the institutions doing for social security and for the convention, as they already know the convention, they already know what are the essential elements, but how as a society, independently, we are having contact with the older person, how to make sure that these rights are applied. So I will pass the floor for Carolina. She is helping us to answer the questions in the Q&A section in the network. Go ahead, Carolina. Thank you, Diego. Yes, we have 6 questions. The first one is for Felix Capoverde. If there is no homologation of the information, it's very difficult to have a transparent study or coherent study. Javier Izaga mentions he refers elderly at the end of the years. We don't can see a retired person as a charge, but also the person who have a real life expectancy realization. There were other person who were not able to go out from their homes. Carlos Aguirre here mentions that a quality of life as human right that is provided for Social Security enhancement is very important for all persons. A quality of life that it contributes for a quality of life for entering the elderly life. And also the need to a good state's permanent policies, and also for the government changes. Javier Izaga also mentioned elder persons was born 1963. And Pilar Benavides mentions that now as Mexico already joined to some other states, they will have a monitoring mechanisms. And also there are 2 other people who have the hand right. Oh, there are 4 person Carlos Aguirre, who was the one who mentioned Guadalupe Mendoza, Hernández Aguirre, y Carly Noemi. I would like to comment something, Sandra. After listening to you and when practice and when learning about the Social Security is a convention for Social Security, since all the rights, first of all, is that the objective is the same. The right for Social Security is a development and a good life expectancy for people. It means that Social Security it's part of the convention. I remember that the principle for Social Security is to protect the person before when they was born after the end of the years. It means that the Social Security institutions objective comes from provide all persons life processes and all conditions, so they have to acknowledge this. So what we can do, the convention will be validated while the convention has in practice in the real life. It has to have a declaration not only in written but also for people's process. This is one of the objectives to convert social security institutions, and also for the member institutions in the conference. It's a letter or a challenge on how to practice daily. As Sandra mentioned, from institutions have relationship with other persons, but also at the moment in the conception of the social security systems. One of the main topics that are talking about the continents, the need to reform pension systems. We are talking about the sufficient pensions to have this good life expectancy, the adequation for the institutions to provide the rights for older persons, not also for older persons, but only for also for old people. I think that the convention continue working to have a precedent or a special emphasis into the equality rights, but also have to translate it into actions and effective behaviors and attitudes. When I read the convention, I ask myself that it is a social security convention because this is what social security is. This is a expression, a manifestation for a certain population sector, and also for the figures that you mentioned at the beginning. In the future, we are going to be part of the population for all the persons, and also their rights have to concrete and to be facilitated not only for the grading convention in the daily basis. For us, it's very important, and as I confirm this activity is because the person, employees or the person who work in social security, we have to understand and to be part or appropriate these expressions, these manifestations or declarations on our daily basis work, because institutions have to be organized and being prepared. From the CIESS, we have opened a space in a space for the training or research, as we know, as we correspond as Inter-American Center for Social Security Studies. So we will start to make reports to provide a training for the convention, to understand the convention, to allow the declaration and to provide the declaration a new reality or some measures and some actions. This is our mission as convention, to contribute the institutions for this convention. When Sandra provide this training, this training will be available in the permanent basis in our webpage. So you can review, not only the members can review, but all people can review this topic. I think that the next step is to implement a course on the convention. What the convention is refers to what is it translated into the daily basis practice, because this is pedagogic items that have to be established or training, not only for the training or specific members, but also for the states. I would like to mention this, so not just to comply, but also to provide, to enhance this space and to know more how it was conceived. And even though it has established many years ago, how to apply this convention, and the road has been slow, or as low as we may think. But nowadays, as the convention exists, we have to work harder. So this convention can convert into realities or opportunities for the acknowledgement for human rights. Hello, my name is Carlos Aguirre. My consideration and my highest consideration for Dr. Wichan, excellent presentation. And also, just to continue what Dr. mentioned before, So we have to imply some state policies that are derived from this convention, and from this can derive from programs. As to consider this as a transversal access for the application of some for these practices in all programs that are derived from of state policies. Thank you very much. It was an excellent class, an excellent virtual class. It is evident that I don't have words to explain this. Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. My name is Cesar Hernandez Aguirre. I'm located in Mexico, in Chihuahua State. And I was very impressed by this topic implemented by Dr. Sandra. Uh, I have been in CIESS headquarters, and before 1999, I did study a diplomat into hospitalary region for the medicine because my formation is biology. The specialization, I did the specialization and also the work that I did during the social security. So I was involved in these aspects in social security and also for older persons. I am within the group of older persons group. I'm 65 years old. In 15 days, I will have 66 years old, and I'm already retired. But talking about the rights for older persons, as a as my as the other person mentioned before, this convention create a reality that not only have to be written into paper, but have to put it into practice. And also for the development for my work, sometimes it is unfair the social security access, not only care facilitation, but also social security in whole, and all a kind of attention. But firstly, in pension for the person who are already retired or the person who are going to retire, the process for pension is very unfair. I don't know if you can remember this. Well, what happened in the Twin Towers in New York? What happened here is there was a movie that happened the same. I don't remember exactly the name. So, in what criterion we can value the life? What economic value we will provide to a human for humans? So this is something that is provided for the resources just to classify the person who were died in this accident according to social security or educational cultural framework. And they were not provided the same in the indemnization. So what as for some persons who were died during the elevator or some other secretary who were the same pensions for the person who work as intendancy. So we have to work on this criterion. So what is the value for a human being? And also we can, as mentioned, as Dr. Sandra mentioned, in attention during the pandemic for older persons. It was a privilege, yes, because we can see the behavior for the pandemic. Some children or teenagers person was not pertinent. So that's why that is some other persons of the fifth decade, and they have to implement the activity for creche, and some ward ages who have to the preliminary evaluation, just according to the magnitude of the percentage of possibility to survive for certain instruments. So we have to have this criterion to have attention for older persons. In this case, it was just in this way. If you can close your comment. Just to mention again, so what is the participation of this person just to being part of these rights for older persons, so they cannot be only writing, but we have to put it into practice. Thank you very much. There were many questions. Can you hear me? First of all, I would like to thank Javier Arizaga that he mentioned the person's now the person nowadays was born from 1963. It is awesome that because sometimes we may think that elderly age or old age it's it is not related. So nowadays we ask ourselves, so how are we going to getting older? So we are just our life is just running faster. This is just a society level. So we can realize the magnitude for this challenge. First of all, I would like to thank Carlos and Cesar for your comments. And I also to comment something about Dr. Carrasco's comment. So this is a convention for Social Security. This is the first time I heard this, Dr. Carrasco. So I'm thinking I'm thinking, and I have to provide a good argument. One of the complex uh, topics, there were many complex topics. Something that were not easy to work on in the convention during the convention preparation was social security topic, because it means that also everything that has to do with all the person have to be different from all social security environments. So sometimes we can hear that the convention are not talk about for all the access for social security right. It is consecrated in Article 17. It is something that has to do with the system. There is something that has to do with all the actuaries or the economists. It's something that is dissociated with all the person's rights. And now, as Dr. Carrasco mentioned, that it is a convention for Social Security, yes, there are certain elements. If we are see it into a wider point of view, there are many common points, because Social Security, as we can understand in a wider way, it is related to pension and retirement. So this reading have been used very useful just to enhance or to implementation for the convention for these members. So I think there is a work opportunity that can be explored, and it has been very interesting to apply. So this convention that was applied in Argentina, that we made for the institution for pension and retirement people some years ago, it was very interesting. This look just to change and official's statement or revenue state, just to change the way to understand elderly people or how to work with elder persons. As we mentioned before, this is some persons are in in the site or everywhere. It doesn't matter where they are living in, so they have to have the access. So you have to be treated with dignity. And we can see here some changes. They are not only changes, so we have more changes, complex challenges or changes that we have to implement into society for social security and care. But also we can work into the other contribution, and we have it can make a contribution, important contribution. This is a question for Pilar Meravides. Now that Mexico already is some to the acceptation for the convention, there are some states that are accepted. There some mechanisms that be monitoring? This is a very good uh, comment. An article related to a convention mechanism. Once when we have the 10th ratification, so it has to be confirmed for this follow-up mechanism. This constituted for two elements, one for the party states parties and also for the expert meeting. This not only we not only have the 10th state that have certificated this convention, we also have the 11th. Suriname was joined to this convention, so we have already 12 states who are obliged to accept this convention. It is not only Pilar's question, but many people has been asking this during this process. So what will happen? The Secretariat for the American States Organization have to call for the states of being part of this convention. That is something that it has to be. This is something that it has to do for the next for the future days. The Inter-American Convention for Human Rights will imply a new study. It already has an important contribution. So we'll talk about all the confirmation for the external committee. By installing this follow-up committee, we'll be able to monitoring how many states have been out or have been committed during the ratification of the convention. And Pilar, we are very attentive of what will be happening in the future. It is very important. Not all OEA institutions have a follow-up mechanism, so we hope that we can have to a contribution for this matter. In answering to Rosestella's question, what are the articles that imply more discussion? Well, all articles imply many discussions, so we have many days to revision, but there is one element that is very important, that when you read the observation when the ratification of the convention with the states, and it caused a lot of polemical issue during the parliament states that has to do with the informed and consent in care matters, because it was associated with the informed previous consent was has to do with other lawful matter, because the convention reaffirmed the life. So there was a complex article also for the care right of care. We have to establish what kind of care. We are talking about some social sanitary services, but every of the article has their complexity. And just to conclude, what articles were annullated? Some articles were annullated, but in the project that we elaborated in the CEPAL, it was because it was not incorporated because it was contained in other articles of the convention, was older women rights, specifically indigenous people's right, and specific population rights. It was not conceived in the convention. It was established in the previous convention establishments, but then the convention was highlighted and it was opted not to provide or create a specific provision, so parts that every group has to have a certain section. It was not an opportunity to make so. So in general, there are many questions here, but it is in this is all my contribution for this. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Sandra and colleagues that are joining us today. I have some reflections just to conclude this. But I think here that what you are taking today, this is good for us to conform a training team just to be aware for the work into the framework of this class. So it can allow us to continue working the different elements and just to think how to think about the expertise and the support that Dr. Sandra has and the technical accompaniment for the governments and different government levels. It also allows us to work together with CIESS's vision to generate some training programs as this training today, just to continue working. It identified the prospective planning course that is something that we are just working on for the contribution for the old aging topic. And also for the demographic resilience topic, as is also understood as participation anticipation for all the scenarios that you may know or may see for to prevent the population or all aging population. And also what happened for the demographic bonus as CUDIS. So where we can have this construction or a new paradigm for the population, old age for the population in our region, in socioeconomic or gender or inequality discrimination, so we can work for a good articulated manner, so just to accomplish all the needs to provide they're providing these topics. As we're already in this international role or this international environment as the ratification of this convention, and also this to have more relationship with other countries in the same Latin America region and have a more significant basis to generate a best practices approach for all the three institutions in the regional nature. And also to have this articulation and other visions on how we can work on in the future, and also have a root agenda for the implementation for this convention, and imply more strategic steps. Inevitably, the elderly process cannot stop, and I want to provide some the vision for this convention. We have an urgent vision just to make sure that these are all applying, and to have a more just for a more complex and more affordable measures for all ages for these populations, and also the articulation for key articulators as private sectors, and also civil society societies for the construction of this convention is very priority for us, and sustainability for different projects or programs that can help the government initiatives, and to make emphasis within human rights, and making sure that these topics have different visions, but to provide and to look for a more equitable societies. So I think that this contribution, we will keep on working together with people with your courses or other kind of the classes that you provide. Thank you very much for your contribution. I think that with this, we have opened a space, a methodological space, a different environment. This was our first class, and the next one we will have a more pedagogical vision. The Inter-American Center for Social Security Studies have a main mission. Sometimes we see that we have to develop studies in political resources, but also I consider we have to have a bridge role. So we are a bridge for social security institutions. What do social security institutions do? This is specifically the topic. This is a objective. As I mentioned before, and Sandra also replied that social security have a objective is the main development for the persons. This is what the main objective for social security institution. So what we think here that is we can be a main instrument to provide these instances for the convention for reality for institutions, and institutions have to work for the population. Within the population, we have older persons with similar conditions, similar status, similar rights. So we have to translate it into concrete actions. So I would like to develop some strategies. So we are going to provide a course for follow for the convention, and also to translate this mandate into a concrete action on how can we enhance it and what is supposed to do in terms on institutions or organizations for the society. I think so we have to work on it. And the students that were very attentive today, the next day we will start with the exam for this class. Thank you very much, Sandra, on behalf of CIESS. And thank you very much, Diego, that he has been working on the organization of this class. And also, thank you very much, Noé. And this is your house. You are very welcome here. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a wonderful day. Thank you very much. Before we conclude, I also want to thank you, Sandra, for your experience on how 1 hour and a half your method has been transformed into what she already concreted and documented that is additional to, and it is relevant. It is relevant for the convention and also for the process for in Mexico. We will try to contribute in the CIESS to have an interpretation for the convention from social security perception. This is something that is a main objective that was highlighted in this class, and the initiative that we called a CIESS virtual classroom. Not all can transport to Mexico City or to on-site class on this kind of classes. So the main objective is just to make them extensive in the internet or via the platform. So this is one thing that is very important, just to contribute to eliminate these barriers. And also for older persons, so these older persons can know these kind of topics, so they can realize of all the rights they may encounter. Just to conclude, I would like to mention that maybe we will have other agenda topics. So we will have our second virtual classroom. We will talk of equality consensus. So this is also international consensus that was applied for the population development, and was also in the same line to socialize and to open a dialogue space in the aula or classroom, virtual classroom platform. I want to thank you your participation. Once this session is closed, you will receive a Q&A survey just to explore all the topics that you are may interested in. And we also want to comment that the CIESS open the doors for you. Thank you very much.